kid's yahrzeit is this week.
Yeah, yesterday I thought that I was in 770.
Was it warm? A little bit? Cold?
Very
Okay.
I forgot to put the breaker back on at first. So I decided to turn it back on, but after my son tried to, then I thought I wouldn't back. But it was still very much warm.
Okay, so let's see what the Gemara says over here. We have a sponsor for this week's Shurim, so I want to announce the sponsor. So first of all, this week's broadcast is sponsored by the Westbrook family, liluy nishmas, their grandparents, Shmuel Alexander ben Avrum, and Pessel bas Meir Stern, and Moshe ben Avrum, and Miriam bas Moishe RAPAPORT, who were killed on Yud Aleph Kislev, Hashem Yinkoim Damam. And Brenda Westbrook's father, Moshe ben Shmuel Alexander Stern, who was niftar on Yud Ches Kislev. Tehei nishmasai tzura v'tzura hachayim, which is here, which was Toivis. Okay, that's number one. Number two is today. What's today's date? I think it's the Yud Ches today, right? No, I think it's Yud Ches. I think today is Yud Ches. No, it's Yud Zayin. Today is Yud Zayin Kislev. So in 2 days is what we call Yad Kislev. Yad Kislev is the day the Lubavitcher ever got out of jail. But Yud Zayin Kislev, also there's a lot of interesting things this month.
Today is Yud Zayin.
Yes, today is Yud Zayin. So Yud Zayin Kislev is the day that the Novi Ezra Sofer came up to the Beis Hamikdash, and he cried that so many people were intermarried, and he got everybody to abandon their non-Jewish spouses and come back. Today was also the day in 1947 where the United Nations voted on the partition plan to give Jews their own land in Israel. It was yet a land. There wasn't even one big land. There was 3 individual pieces. It was the coastal plain from like Haifa to Lud, I guess, Haifa to Tel Aviv, and then there was Yerushalayim itself, completely isolated, and it was part of the Galil up north, where Tzfas is probably, and Tveria is. So right after that, of course, it was attacked. That was the War of Independence. But today is also the yahrzeit of the Alter van Avardik. The Alter van Avardik. He was known. Yeah, Yosy. Like in Avardike, if Avardike was expected to be in such control of his emotions that if a Avardike was waiting for a bus and he stuck his head to look to see if a bus was coming, that was a big obstacle in Avardike, because bus helped us support him. It's a Kelem Azach, it's not a Avardike Azach. Oh, the Avardike would go into a bakery and ask for a screw or a bolt. Okay, so if I'm Rabbi Yochanan, my dichsiv, it says in the pasuk, and now we're right at the top Tesam and Aleph. Oh, I'm going to Victor. Aser to Aser. It says in the pasuk, Aser to Aser, Eskol Meiser, Eskol Tuas Arecha Hayot Shana. We learned that, of course, on Yom Tov, and we learned Aser, take Meiser, B'Shvil Shetas Aser, so you should become rich. Rabbi Yochanan met his nephew, the young child of Rish Lakish. He told him, Emily Pesuke, tell me a pasuk. Whenever they wanted to know things, they would ask the child to tell them what they were learning, and that would always reveal to them secrets about what they needed to know. Like we know when we learn about the Megillah, we learn about the psukim that they were asked then. So the Yingala said, Aser to Aser. And then the Yingala said, my dear uncle, my Aser to Aser. He asked him, what is this Aser to Aser? What's this double lotion? So Rabbi Yochanan answered his little nephew, Aser b'shvil shetis Aser. If you take Meiser, you'll become wealthy. Now this, in and of itself, is a whole big Torah. It's a shayla if it applies to Meiser Ksofim, if it only applies to Meiser Tua, and it's a shayla if it always works guaranteed, if it doesn't work guaranteed. It's a lot of Torah about it. I think you believe Yitzchak says, someone says that the reason why Hashem allows you to give on the condition to become wealthy is Pasha to help Taniyim. It's Pasha to help Taniyim. So let's see what it says over here. So the child asked for Brechin, how do you know that that's how it works? Amalei says, Zil Nasi, check it out, try it out. Amalei said, the child asked for Brechin, when we show you the Kadosh Baruch Hu, are you allowed to test the Kadosh Baruch Hu? You're not allowed to test. Amalei Rabbi Yechon answered, Hachi Amar Rav Hoshia, Chutz Mizu. When it comes to Meiser, you're allowed to test Hashem. Because Hashem tells us prepare for allowed. Shenemar Haviu, the Skala Meiser, al Beis Oitzer. Bring all the Meiser to the Beis Oitzer. He tear up the vesi, and there'll be food. My house, uvichanuni na bezois, and please test me. Amar Hashem Tzedakah. Hashem said, please test me that if you give this tzedakah, aftach lachem es arubois hashemayim, and then the harikosi lachem bracha ad belidai. I'll give you bracha ad belidai. My ad belidai. What does ad belidai mean? Your lips will get worn out from saying enough. You'll get sick of saying we're winning. So Amalei, I hear Amalei, Ihavis Mati Hasam. If I was there, if I would have learned those psukim, this little nephew said, I wouldn't need anyone to tell me the drasha from the Pessel. It's obvious. I wouldn't need your help or the chiddush that your Rebbe said, because it was obvious from this pasuk that the Rosh Shalom says you're allowed to test it. Now there's a very beautiful, beautiful thesis, and I want to learn it. Hopefully we'll be able to finish on time. I'll move a little bit quickly. Aser to Aser. Here's a story from the Sifri. Aser to Aser is called Tvos Haracha Yotzi Asad Shana Shana. Any little Tvos Haracha Shechai B'Meiser. I only know that your Tvua, which is Chai B'Meiser, there's a din Asher B'Shel Tashet Asher. What about ribis or prachmatya? What about interest that you charge on loans? Of course, legally to a guy, or prachmatya, or a profit that you made in your business. That you have to give Meiser. It's called. It's called Tvos Haracha. It's called. Is telling you that everything you have to give Meiser of, that much as Tvoscha. My kol, the rabbi's ribis, or pragmatya, b'chol davar shemavich by. You have to give 10% Meiser from any type of gain you'll have. And in fact, that's what we learn in Haggadah. It says, "Hayotzi asada shana shana." Kloimar, im lois aser, sadcha kaidim. If you're not going to separate Meiser properly from your field, then lo yelach ela hayotzi ben asad. Then you're only going to have what comes out of the field. So that's what it means. If you don't give Meiser, you're only going to have a yoytzi min asad. What does that mean? So how you call them lachain? Then you are yoytzi min asad. You should roga lahoytzi lemeiser min asad. If you're not going to give Meiser, then your whole field next year will only put out what was supposed to be for Meiser this year. Meaning your profits will drop by 90%. There's a story with a person. So Usher, who was very wealthy. He had a field that yielded 1,000 kur every year. And every year he would separate 100 kur to Meiser. He gave Meiser properly. But when he was dying, he called the son, Das, you should know. This field that I'm going to be giving to you. Hizar, be careful. Make sure to stick to your Meiser and to give 100 kur every year. And then he died. Now the son takes over. And exactly as his father said, it produced 1,000 kur. And no, and the son listened to his father and separated 100 kur. The next year, we realized 100 kur is a lot of money. Maybe I shouldn't give so much. Next year, I'm not going to give the full 100 kur. I'm going to cut back a little bit. What happened? Period. I'm sorry. The next year, the field degraded terribly. It only produced Meir, which was the amount that he should have given from Moshe the year before. He felt very bad. And his relatives found out that this is what happened. And he didn't separate Meiser. They came dressed in happy clothing, not in black and white. You seem to be celebrating my downfall. They told him, no, Nistar halacha, we feel bad for you. Ki garamta loch kol hara azois. You caused this misfortune upon yourself. With they ma lo yifrashta ma'aseh karoyu. Hate it. Why didn't you separate your ma'aseh properly? Bare, come and see. When you first got the field, you're in the balabais. Like Kadosh Baruch Hu kohen, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu was the kohen, meaning he only took his 10%. Because the meiser was the chelik of Kadosh Baruch Hu litin la'aniyim to distribute to the aniyim. But the achshav shelo yifrash the chelkai. Now that you didn't give Hashem his chelik, Kadosh Baruch Hu balabais. Kadosh Baruch Hu moved into first position. Now you're the kohen. El of court. Rather, you're only going to get 100 cord. What does it mean? If you're not mafish the kodesh of kohen, he'll end up with is what he should have separated. If someone holds back his maestros, his yield will be only 10% of what it used to be. The chsiv is there a chaymer yasa efa and a meiser. The efa gives so he goes on and on. So that is bimlav she'inat ma'afresh ha'isur yil la'isa yotze as lasada dainu esav arasha klaim shikchu ha'idrucham. The goyim will take, but you'll lose it. You'll lose it. So you have to give meiser shade. And Toysus is very clear. It's not just meiser tu, it's ksafim, it's revachim, it's anything. His story was what's right. Okay, so let's see the Gemara back there. Very, very fascinating. Next case. And on another occasion, Rabbi Yochanan met the child of Rish Lakish, which was his nephew. And remember, Rish Lakish died because it's the same one, I think. Rish Lakish died because Rabbi Yochanan gave him a dirty look. Rabbi Yochanan was upset with him. That caused Rish Lakish to die. And he saw the little child, Yosef Omar, the various of a person are going to mess up his world, mess up his life. And who's he going to blame for it? No, he won't take responsibility. He did something wrong. Well, Hashem is he'll be upset by Hashem. Why are you bringing this misfortune upon him? Yosef Rabbi Yochanan was asking about this Pessel. Omar asked, could there be anything that's mentioned in the Ksuvim that's not in some way alluded to in the Torah? Amalei, the child was a sharp kid, and he says, of course it's alluded to in the Torah. When the brothers came out from Yosy, and they saw that all their money was still there, this is when they left the first time, when they came the first time to the tribe, and they left, all the money was still there. They realized, oh, we're getting framed, we're in trouble. Why did Hashem bring this misfortune upon us?
This is a good thing for the brothers.
It was a bad thing because they were going to be framed that they
But the brothers here are to be commended that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one who's in charge and bringing this headache upon them.
But they're panicking. They don't know. They said they don't know why. They didn't know why. Why didn't they figure out this? Because they sold Yosef. They didn't put two and two together.
He didn't go to jail yet. Going to jail means that they sold Yosef.
Yeah, when you came, you get interrogated. You get accused of being meraglim. This is the last thing you want to happen. They were getting accused, right? They were terrified.
I always thought it was a here, but the Lord says that they blame.
They're complaining. Why did this happen?
I hear.
So Rabbi Yochanan heard that. Now, Rabbi Yochanan had very long eyelashes, and they used to use silver forks to lift them up when he wanted to see something. So Zok Gemara Dal Eina, he picked up his eyes, the Chazabay, and he saw the child. Who's the sharp kid? Mrs. Rish Lakish panicked, Rabbi Yochanan's sister, because she said, also Imei's mother came a ficte. She said, get out of here, kid. Amr Lei, she told him, let's not hang out in front of my brother. I don't want him to do to you like what he did to your father. I'm afraid he'll give you a look, and chas v'shalom, you'll die. Zok Gemara. Let's see what the Bay says.
So he wanted to see the child because the child said good or the child said no good?
You know, even the small, the child said good, but she didn't want the attention from her brother on her son because she was afraid something bad could come out of it.
Did she wake up by the second time?
I don't know. Maybe she wasn't there by the first time. Matar bishvil yachid. Hashem will even bring a little bit of matar to satisfy a specific need. for a yachid. But parnasa, to bring a shefa of rain that makes everybody improve, that's b'shul rabbim. That Hashem only does if there's a rabbim asking. Mota b'shul yachid ichsiv yiftach Hashem lecha es aitzarei atoyv. Hashem will open it even for you, an individual, losais mitar artzucha, to give rain. However, when it comes to parnasa b'shul rabbim, ichsiv hinini mamti lachem lech meisvei. Rabbi Yosy Simon Shloisha parnasim toivim. So you're saying now, Yosy, that a vast amount of parnasa will not come for a yachid; it will only come for a rabbi. So Zaktimar Shloisha parnasim toivim amdul Yisrael. Klal Yisrael had three great leaders: Eloi, Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam. The Gimel matanis tovis nitnu ayadam, and they were zeicha to three phenomenal matanis to them. Ve'elohein, Be'er, the Anan Uman. Be'er came b'schus Miriam, the Amud Anan came b'schus Aharon, and the Mon came b'schus Moishe. Miriam. Once Miriam died, so the schus for the Be'er is gone. Nistalaka Be'er, the Be'er was taken away. Shenemar v'atamas sham Miriam, uchsiv ashrei v'lehayim mayim la'eda. There was nothing to drink. But the chazer b'schus shneim, in the schus of Moishe and Aaron, the Be'er was restored so that Klal Yisrael still have what to drink. Meis Aaron, now only Moshe is left standing. Nistalku ananei hakavod. The ananei hakavod, which were in the schus of Aaron, they disappeared. Shenemar v'yishma Knani melech harod, and they came to fight with Klal Yisrael. Ma shmua shama, what did they hear? Shama shemeis Aaron v'nistalku ananei hakavod. They heard that Aaron died, and the protective layer around Klal Yisrael is gone. So he thought, oh, if Hashem took away the protective covering, now your bunch is letting me attack Klal Yisrael. The nation was afraid because Aaron died. Amar Babo said, I'll take a year that they were afraid. They were exposed, they were visible, they were seen. The Rish Lakish told us, the Amar Rish Lakish key, the word key used in the Torah, which is many times used in the Torah, could mean one of four meanings. The Shamash Marba Lashon is E, Dilma, Ella, and the Ha. In this case, it's the Ha. They became exposed. Why? The Ha makes Aaron because Aaron died and there was a stalk and then they covered and they became revealed. But it says Chazru Shneim b'schus Moishe. Both the Ananei HaKavod and the Ananei HaKavod as well as the Be'er came back b'schus Moishe. But Meis Moishe and Skalku Chulam, then they all went missing. Shenemar ba'achid the Shloisha Sharoyim b'yerech echad. I'm going to destroy the three shepherds in 1 month. But Hashem didn't kill Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam in 1 month. B'yerech echad mesu. V'lai Miriam mesa b'nisan. V'Aaron ba'av u'Moshe ba'adar. V'lamalamed shenisbatlu gimel matanos toivei shenosnu al yadon nistalku kulam b'yerech echad. They all went missing in 1 month, the month of Moshe Rabbeinu died. But whatever the case is, you see that the man and the Be'er all came because of Moshe Rabbeinu, who's a yachid. So you see, parnasa does come because of a yachid. Since he's needed by the rabbim, he's considered like a rabbim, and therefore he could bring even parnasa l'chula. So there's a lot of Torah to discuss on this. The first shaila is very interesting. We make a Yom Tov called Sukkos to commemorate the Ananei HaKavod. Why don't we have a Yom Tov to commemorate the Be'er? And why we don't have a Yom Tov to commemorate the month? Did anybody ever think about that? So there's a couple of different answers that are offered. I've heard before an answer that when Hashem takes you into the Midbar, He can't leave you without food. He can't leave you without drink. Those are necessities. But the luxury of having a fully air-conditioned coach bus to take you around in complete comfort, that's a bonus, and that's why we thank Hashem. Make a Yom Tov.
Remember them on every Shabbos, though.
I'm sorry?
Remember them on every Shabbos. Shtei lechem, and we cover it. The month, isn't it?
The Yom Tov is not about month. Yom Tov is about that Hashem created the world in 6 days, and on the 7th day he rested. Sure, we threw in little tidbits here and there, but we have a Yom Tov specifically dedicated to celebrate the Ananei HaKavod.
And I think we brought us to a third question. And what's the tidbit that we have for the Be'er? One, at least he told us, he brought up a tidbit. And what's the tidbit for the Be'er?
I hear. So another shot that they say is that the Olam complained about the Mon. The Olam complained about the Be'er. But they never complained about the Om. You never find that there was Tarumbas. You never find about the Om. The other part, I heard a beautiful part. it's a beautiful Shevet Brachos Torah word. They say there's a big shidduch crisis. So I used to always say, why is there a shidduch crisis? Because I would call somebody and read them a shidduch. I want to read you Yankel. The father said, Yankel, I don't want Yankel. I want Moishe. In the Choshen, let's say, in this Shevet Brachos with Moishe. I only want Moishe. Moishe is the best boy in life. I only want Moishe. And I would say, but what about Yankel? I want Moishe. Moishe is the best. I want Moishe. Because of that, I couldn't read any shidduchim because everybody only wanted Moishe. Now that Moishe got engaged, so the people coming back and said, you know what? Tell me about Chaim. Maybe he's a pretty good guy after all. The problem was that Moishe was so great, he was such a good chassan, or the Kala, that he eclipsed anybody else. And nobody was interested in anybody else, only wanted the best. So that's shot. In Aaron's days, there were many Gedolim in Klal Yisrael, but nobody noticed any Gedolim. You know why? Because Aaron the Kohen. Once Aaron the Kohen was niftar, then it was Vayiro b'nei Yisrael, Klal Yisrael start to become seen. This Beryl's got to find a Talmud Chacham, and Chaim Yankel's got to find a Talmud Chacham, and Meir's got to find a Talmud Chacham. But when Aaron was alive, they were all eclipsed due to Aaron's greatness. Now that Aaron's not around, Vayiro b'nei Yisrael, Klal Yisrael will see. So I find it now, after this chasana, you're going to see the shidduch crisis is over. Because now people aren't holding out for this color. People are not holding out for this chasana. No, we still have a plot to do. We didn't finish the first topic. Zok to Gemara weiter. Rav Huna bar Menoyach, Rav Shmuel bar Idi, Rav Chia, Mivastanyo, have a shchicha kamei de Rava. They used to learn by Rava. Rava was a murdik about Masber. He was a murdik Maggid Shir. But kinachnavshi de Rava, when Rava passed on, so they had to get a different Maggid Shir. Also, the kamei de RAPAPORT. They went to learn by RAPAPORT. RAPAPORT didn't say things as clearly as Rava did. So kol emes to have amalu shmaitza. Anytime he was saying shir and they didn't understand what was going on in shir, have him a ramzadodi. They would make faces at each other to indicate, you can't get him anymore. They don't make him like they used to. So it was very insulting and hurtful to Rav Papa. Cholosh daite. So we turned over to Ahmed. Akirya b'chalmei. So it was read to him this pasuk in a dream that the akid shloishes haroyim. I'm going to destroy these 3 royim. So Rav Papa heard that these Talmidim are in danger because they're bothering him. So he realized that he better get rid of them. When he finished the shir, he says, go b'sholem. Go b'sholem. The Shah, why didn't he say lech lisholem? Right? We don't say lech b'sholem. But I guess he was telling them that you better go because otherwise it will be b'sholem if you stick around here. Because like what? No, lech b'sholem means go to die.
With shalom
means you're going to die.
Lish shalom means to die.
No, the opposite.
So what do we say?
We say it's from lish shalom because we want you to stay alive. And mace we say lech b'sholem because you're going in peace and you're staying there forever.
Okay.
That's how it works. Okay, so let's see what the Gemara says like. So basically, our Papa said you can't be here because it's gonna lead to chas v'shalom terrible things. Rabbi Bar Ashi have a shchiach kamei Rav Papa. Rabbi Bar Ashi used to also learn by Rav Papa, but he was mamish hammer Rav Papa away with kashas the whole day. Have a makshel tuva. He was mamish hacking away everything Rav Papa said. He asked him about kashas, and Rav Papa didn't realize. I'm sorry, Rabbi Simi didn't realize that Rav Papa couldn't handle it. Yom Echad one day, Chazia, Rabbi Simi saw that Rav Papa, the nafal alapei, that he fell on his face. Shama, and he heard the Amar Rachmana litzlon mikisufa desim. Hashem, please save me from the humiliation that I suffer at the hands of Simi, because he asks me all these kashas that I'm not able to answer. So when Simi heard that, he felt terrible. He made up his mind he's not going to pepper Papa with questions anymore. The Sulay actually, and he stopped asking kashas. Ravish Lakish, so period. That's the end of the Sugya. Now the Ravish Lakish Shavar Motar Bishvil Yochid. Rish Lakish also said that Motar Hashem will even bring Bishvil Yochid. Tell me Rish Lakish. Minai la Motar Bishvil Yochid. How do you know that Motar come because of Yochid? T'chsiv Shalu mi Hashem Motar be'eis Malkosh. Hashem oisech chazizim. Hashem makes chazidim. The Gemara is going to say what that means. Umotar Geshem Yitin Lahem Leish Esav Basad. So we dash Yochel Lakoil. You might think Hashem only gives where it's for everybody together. Talmud Lomer Leish. Hashem will even give motar for one person. With Tanya we learned even weiter. Ila Ish Yochel Lachol Sudach. You might think Hashem will only give him rain to irrigate all of his fields. Hashem will only irrigate one field if it's only one field that he's asking for. You might think, okay, that the whole field will get rained on. Hashem will make it rain even for one grass. For a tzaddik who needs rain. The other of Daniel Bakatina, he had this garden called Yoima have Ozil Vesayarla. He would always go inspect it. Amar Hamishra, this row Boimai needs rain. The Hamishra Boimai, and this row doesn't need rain. And Hashem made it that it rained only where it was needed. What does the pasuk mean when it says Hashem oiseh chazizim? What does it mean Hashem made chazizim? The Gemara Amar Yosy B'chanina Melamed Shekol Tzadik VeTzadik Hakadosh Baruch Hu oiseh lo chazis b'fnei atzmai. Hashem makes for each tzadik a chazis. But what is a chazis? So the lashon chazizim in plural is Hashem makes for all the tzaddikim the chazis that they need. My chazizim, what is a chazis? Amidah parchos, they're clouds that bring rain. A good simon that it's going to rain is if you see clouds that are parchos. My parchos, what exactly is this cloud that we're referring to as the word parchos? It's a fine cloud that's under a very heavy, thick cloud. That's a sign that it's going to be raining big time. The soft rain, the soft cloud, the light cloud that comes in front of from Nehila, a soft cloud, Mekama Mitri Us. I'm sorry, I'm making a mistake. Nehila is a fine rain. Rashi's Geshamim Dak. A fine rain, when it rains a little bit, when you see a fine rain, it's a sign that there's going to be a heavy rain following behind it. Nehila Mekama Mitras. But Mitra, Basar Mitra, Nehila Mekama Mitra, Asi Mitra. A fine rain before rain is a sign that it's going to start raining heavy. Basar Mitra. If after there's a heavy rain, then it drops down to a fine drizzle, then Pasuk Mitra, that's a sign that the rain's going to stop. Mekama Mitra, Asi Mitra. If there's a fine rain before the rain, that's a sign that there's going to be a big rain coming. Simonech Maholta. The simon is Maholta, which is a sifter where you sift flour in. So first the fine flour falls out through the holes, and then the thicker pieces remain. So when the fine is an indicator that there's going to be thick soon. The basar mitra, but the fine rain that comes after rain, that's a sign that the rain's going to stop. Pasuk mitra, v'simana charida easy. When goats go to the bathroom, at first big chunks come out, and then the little driplets come out. It's an interesting analogy that the Gemara would pick this, but it must be that the Olam was familiar with it because the Olam had goats, so that was a good way for them to understand things. Yeah. Yeah.
So this rain is a fertilizer and it's low.
I hear. Zok Gemara. Ula ikla lebavel. Ula showed up to Bavel. Chaza parcha. She saw clouds, the clouds that we just identified that are rain clouds, where they have thick clouds on top of thin clouds. Amalahu, he says it's going to rain. Panu mani, bring in your furniture, bring in your things that you have outside because it's going to get very rainy. The hash tossing mitra. L'sayf la'asim mitra. At the end, it didn't rain. He got ripped off. So you know what he said? Amar ki hechit mishaki bavloi. Just like the people of Bavel are a bunch of crooks and they lie. Hachi mishaki mitrayu. Even their rain clouds are crooked, and even their rain clouds lie and say there's going to be rain when there's no rain.
Can you imagine how much better Chaim Tzvi's business would be if it rained goat dung? Man, nobody would want to push off getting a rooster.
You heard what he said? Chaim, your business would be much better if instead of raining water, it's rained goat dung. Then people would never ever delay fixing their roof.
I got a lot to tell Victor on this subject.
Okay. Zok Gemara. Ula ikloy Rabba Chazi Mola Tzana de Tam. He saw a big basket in the market of dates being sold for a very low price, mezuzah. So he said, I can't believe it. The cost of living is so low in Bavel, everybody should be sitting and learning because they don't have to work too much. Because it's so easy to survive without working. Amar Mali Tana de Dovsha Bezuzah Ubavloi Aski by Raisa. So he was mekatric on them with this fact that the dates were so easily available. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. This is a famous Gemara. Who did? Bilalia, that night after he ate some dates, Saru, Oh, he turned over, his stomach was ready, and he had diarrhea. He was in bad shape. Couldn't learn. Omar, he said, you know what? I have a newfound respect for the people of Bavel. Here in Bavel, you can buy a full sack of knives, a full basket of knives. In other words, the food here kills you. And and to think even under those painful circumstances, they still learn. So if I'm looking at them down, that they don't learn enough, he says, whoa, with this, it's amazing how much they learn. Tanya B'lezer, the whole world, we drink from the Atlantic. Now, it doesn't literally mean that all our rain comes from the Atlantic. If you live near the Atlantic, so your clouds are absorbing water from the Atlantic. Of course, if you're in other places, it just means from the oceans of the world, there's evaporation, and then the clouds carry that water and delivers it to the land. A cloud came up, and it irrigated the land. How could you say that the rain clouds are holding water from the ocean? Water from the ocean is salt water, and we know rain is not salt water. Not a kasha. The clouds desalinate the water and make it kishmak to drink. Rabbi Shua disagrees, and he says there's special reservoirs of water up in Shemayim, and that's where our rain comes from. Ella mani mikayim ve'ed yalam in oretz. It says the cloud came from the ground. So to Melamed, you know these big airplanes that are made to put out fires, they scoop up water and they dump it down. So that's exactly what it's saying. Melamed sha'anonim is gabrim v'oil. The clouds are like these big scoop planes. They go up to Shemayim. Upoishchin pm kenoid. They open up their mouth like a big jug. Umakabel ma'moter, and then they get filled up from the reservoir that's up there. Shenemar yizku motor la'adu. I don't know if I pronounce that properly. Let me look up the hay. Let me look up the pasuk. Inside over here, it says in the pasuk, ki yigara nitpe moyim yazoiku motor la'edoy. So the water will go into the jug, and these jugs, they have small holes in them like a sifter. And then they move and they sprinkle the water on the earth. The sprinkles of water come from the clouds that are high up. There's only a slight separation between each tipa, and if there wasn't, and it would come down in one big dump, it would flood the world. To teach you, great is the day of rain. Like the day Hashem created the world, and we had these psukim already. Which is referring to rain. So you see that cheker is a word used to describe rain. And that pasuk is talking about Brias Ha'olam. So we have here a machlokes: is the source of the rain the oceans and it evaporates into the cloud, or is the source of the rain reservoirs of water that are in Shemayim? It takes water. Hashem irrigates the mountains from the Al Yosef. And Rabbi Yochanan gave an added explanation to what this pasuk means. He did Al Yosef Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from the Al Yosef of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which would indicate the reservoirs that are up high in Shemayim. Command Rabbi Shua. Pasuk Pshat is like Rabbi Shua, who says that the source of our rainwater is the reservoirs up there. Rabbi Eliezer, how will Rabbi Eliezer explain Rabbi Yochanan? So the Gemara, he could say differently. He could say, "Kimin the Salki Lasam." The rain comes from water that the clouds absorb from the oceans, but then the clouds go up into Shemayim. Mashke Mal Yosef Karli. Since they distribute the water, they release the water. When they're up there, the word Mashke Mal Yosef still makes sense, because even if the water is coming from the ocean, but it's released from up there.
I'm a little confused. The Yeshua and Rabbi Elazar were Tanoim.
Who said Rabbi Shua and Elazar time? Maybe these are Meir.
Not Yeshua.
I think we're talking about Meir, because like you said, that how could they be arguing? How could we try to say you're going according to Rabbi Yochanan? Zok to Gemara, if you don't say that, in one of the curses, in one of the Teicha, it says, Avak v'afer min hashemayim. Earth and dust will come from the heavens. Clearly, there's no reservoir of mud or dust up in Shemayim. It obviously means it's absorbed and brought up in the clouds from below. Since they're brought up there, they're released from there, it's called min hashemayim. Hakanami, here I can argue as well, even the salki lahasam, al Yosef part of it. Who is it going like that Rav Chanina said? Koines kaneid me'ayom. Hashem gathered together in a jug the waters of the Yam. Noisen ba'aitrus toimus. He puts in the aitrus toimus. What does that mean? Migarm la'aitrus yishmalu bar. What caused that the storehouses should get full of wheat, full of produce? Ta'aimus, the water from the depths. So you see clearly that the water comes from the depths. Look at Mark Rebbe Eliezer. So that is consistent with Rebbe Eliezer, who says that the source of rain is the oceans that evaporate into the clouds. That is talking about when Hashem created the world. Originally, all the water was on the world, and then Hashem brought that water up in Shemayim. But now, when it actually rains, it's rain that comes, water that comes from a reservoir that's up in Shemayim. Okay, I guess we could stop here.
Several years ago, I'm in the walk-in closet, and my